Deep within a quiet, mist-covered valley, far away from the noise of the bustling world, lived an old monk named Kalen and his young disciple, Jayan. The monastery was a place of absolute peace. The wind whispered gently through the ancient banyan trees, and the sound of a distant river brought a sense of calm to everyone who visited. Everyone, except Jayan. Jayan was a young man of 20, with a strong build and a dedicated heart. By all accounts, he was a hard worker. He woke up before the birds started to sing, swept the stone courtyards, and tended to the monastery's gardens. Yet, beneath his disciplined exterior, Jayan's heart was heavy with a constant, suffocating shadow. Jayan suffered from a disease of the mind, a disease called comparison. Every evening, when the local villagers came to the monastery to offer food and seek blessings, Jayan would watch them from the shadows. He saw young men his own age who were already successful merchants, skilled artisans, or scholars. He watched them talk with confidence, their posture upright, their voices clear and proud. The worst part of Jayan's insecurity was that it made him feel completely isolated. He believed that everyone else was born perfect, molded from flawless clay, while he was uniquely defective. He began to hide away, avoiding the gaze of the visitors and even the gentle eyes of his master. He carried his anxiety like a heavy, invisible stone pressed firmly against his chest, draining his energy before his day had even begun. He often wondered why his mind was his own greatest enemy. He wanted to be strong, he wanted to be enlightened, but his flaws felt too deep to fix. He felt like an empty shell, trying to force himself to be whole, while everything inside him was slowly cracking under the weight of his own judgment. Little did Jayan know, the lesson that would change his life forever was about to begin with his very next daily chore. The next morning, the bell of the monastery rang at 4 o'clock, signaling the start of a new day. Jayan forced himself out of his bed, washing the sleep from his eyes. He took a deep breath, trying to brace himself against the heavy thoughts that always rushed into his mind the moment he woke up. Today, he promised himself, he would do his chores perfectly. Today, he would not let his mind wander. His first and most important task of the day was to fetch fresh water from the river at the bottom of the hill. This water was sacred. It was used for the master's tea, for cooking the daily meals, and for watering the monastery's small vegetable patch. Jayan walked over to the tool shed and picked up his wooden shoulder pole. Hanging from thick, woven ropes on either end of the heavy wooden pole were 2 large clay pots. Jayan had used these same 2 pots for over a year. The pot on the left side was a masterpiece of craftsmanship. It was made from thick, smooth, flawless red clay. It had no marks, no scratches, and no imperfections. Every single time Jayan walked down to the river, dipped the perfect pot into the water, and climbed back up the steep hill, it delivered a full, proud portion of water. Not a single drop was lost. But the pot on the right side was entirely different. It was older, weathered, and bore a deep, jagged crack that ran all the way from its rim down to its rounded base. It was a fragile thing, held together only by the strength of the baked clay. Jayan carefully balanced the heavy wooden pole across the back of his neck, adjusting his posture as the weight pressed into his shoulders. He walked down the long, winding dirt path that led to the riverbank. He dipped both pots into the cool, flowing water, filling them to the brim. Then, the true trial began. The trek back to the monastery was a long, exhausting climb up a steep, uneven dirt trail. Step by step, Jayan pushed through the physical strain. But as he walked, the cracked pot began to do what it always did. Through the jagged line on its side, water began to seep out. At first, it was just a slow trickle, but as Jayan walked further and the midday heat began to rise, the water dripped faster and faster, splashing onto the dry dust of the path. By the time Jayan finally reached the monastery gates and emptied the contents into the master's large storage tank, the perfect pot was entirely full, but the cracked pot was always half empty. 2 whole years passed in this exact way. Every single day, Jayan walked the path, and every single day, he arrived at the top of the hill with only 1.5 pots of water. For Jayan, this daily chore became a physical reflection of his own broken life. Sometimes, we reach a point where our internal struggles are magnified by our external world. For Jayan, that day arrived with unexpected force. The village at the bottom of the hill, where Jayan often traveled to gather supplies for the monastery, was suddenly hit by a cruel and unexpected drought. The river, once a flowing source of life, had narrowed to a weak stream, and the air was thick with heat and dust. The villagers were stressed. Arguments broke out in the marketplace. Jayan, already struggling with his deep insecurity, absorbed all of this negative energy. He felt powerless. He saw the suffering of others and blamed himself, believing his own negative thoughts were somehow poisoning the world around him. His meditations became impossible, and his simple work felt like an unpayable debt. He felt entirely broken, just like his pot. One evening, after failing to complete a simple task for the monastery, Jayan reached his breaking point. He ran from the central courtyard and collapsed onto a dry, dusty stone step near the edge of the hill. He pulled his knees to his chest and buried his face in his hands, completely overwhelmed by the crushing weight of his despair. He felt foolish. He felt like a fake. How could he hope to learn the deep wisdom of the monks when he couldn't even control his own self-doubt? He decided right then, in the suffocating darkness of that evening, that he would leave the monastery the next morning. He would tell the master he was too flawed to stay. He would accept his fate as a broken object, destined to live a half-empty life, just like the leaking clay pot. Jayan sat in that cold silence for what felt like hours, dreading the morning confession. But he was not as alone as he believed. A gentle, warm light suddenly split the blue twilight shadows around him. He looked up, his eyes blurred with tears, to see Master Kaelin. The wise old monk was standing perfectly still on the dirt path above him, holding a small oil lamp that cast a comforting golden glow. He didn't speak. He just looked down at his crying disciple with an expression of infinite compassion and understanding. He saw the broken pot, and he knew it was finally time to show Jayan the flowers. The next morning, before the sun had even cleared the horizon, Master Kaelin did not ask Jayan about his plans to leave. Instead, he simply handed him the wooden shoulder pole and the 2 clay pots. Jayan, his eyes tired and his heart numb, quietly took the weight onto his shoulders. He walked down to the river, filled the pots as he always did, and began the heavy climb back up the hill. But this time, Master Kaelin walked slowly right beside him.
Jayan looked up, wiping the sweat from his forehead, and for the first time in his life, he actually noticed the ground beneath his feet. He was stunned. On the left side of the path, where the perfect pot traveled, the ground was completely dry, dusty, and barren. It was nothing but hard, empty dirt. But on the right side, the side where the cracked pot had leaked its water day after day, the path was completely transformed. It was covered in a brilliant, lush carpet of green grass and exploding with thousands of beautiful, colorful wildflowers blooming under the morning sun. The air on their right side was alive with color, fragrance, and beauty. Jayan stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, looking at the vibrant line of life stretching all the way from the riverbank straight to the monastery gates. Master Kaelin smiled warmly, looking at the amazed expression on his disciple's face. He looked at the cracked pot hanging from the pole, which was currently dripping water directly onto the roots of a small, blooming flower. "Do you see this, Jayan?" Master Kaelin asked, his voice steady and calm. "I have always known about this pot's flaw. I knew it was cracked from the very first day. But I did not replace it. Instead, I planted flower seeds all along your side of the path. And every single day, as you struggled up this hill, carrying what you thought was a heavy, broken burden, the cracked pot was watering those seeds. Without its beautiful imperfection, we would never have this grace to decorate our tables and bring joy to our minds. Its flaw created this garden." Jayan looked from the flowers back to his own trembling hands, a wave of pure realization washing over his soul as his tears finally met the blooming earth below. Master Kaelin led Jayan to the shade of the ancient banyan tree. They sat down together on the cool earth, the scent of the path's wildflowers drifting around them in the warm breeze. The old monk looked at his disciple, his eyes filled with a deep, timeless wisdom. "Jayan," the master said softly, "you have spent years comparing yourself to others. You have looked at the successful merchants, the brilliant scholars, and the confident villagers, and you have judged yourself as broken. You believed that because you have anxieties, because you have doubts, and because you make mistakes, you are completely useless to this world. But look at what you have just witnessed. The perfect pot did its duty well, but it only brought water. It was the broken pot, through its very leaks, that brought life, color, and beauty to this entire hill. The truth of existence is that we are all cracked pots," Master Kaelin continued, his voice echoing with profound warmth. "None of us are molded perfectly. We all carry hidden wounds, secret insecurities, and scars from our past. But our flaws are not our destination. In the hands of a wise awareness, our cracks become the precise places where grace leaks into the world. Your anxiety makes you deeply empathetic to those who suffer. Your struggles make you humble. Your sensitivity allows you to connect with the brokenness in others. Jayan sat in the silence, feeling a profound shift deep within his soul. The heavy stone of insecurity that had pressed against his chest for years finally dissolved into the earth. He looked back down the trail at the vibrant flowers, and then at the old cracked pot resting beside him. He did not see a broken tool anymore. He saw a partner in a beautiful, silent miracle. Dear friend, as you watch this story today, look closely at your own life. What are the cracks you are hiding? What are the flaws you are constantly apologizing for? Remember the lesson of the clay pot. Do not curse your brokenness. Bring your cracks into the light, walk your path with courage, and let your imperfections water the world. You are beautiful, precisely because you are beautifully flawed. If this story brought peace to your heart today, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more weekly journeys into wisdom. Until next time, keep walking, keep growing, and let your flowers bloom.